Alright, let's talk about a pretty special fountain pen to me. This fountain pen is the first fountain pen that I ever bought, and while it might not look like much, because it isn't all that much, this is pretty special because it has managed to stick around for about 3 years now, and I know I sound really surprised that it's managed to stick around so much, but I really am surprised because usually when I was using ballpoints, I'd take a ballpoint to school, and by the end of second period, I'd be stealing a ballpoint from someone else. That's just how the world worked back then when I used ballpoints and rollerballs. But when I bought this, I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't lose it. And then I lost it. And found it again a few months later. Yeah, that wasn't... I didn't abide to that. It was only a few days in, and I lost it in the back of my locker. That's a story for another time. But this is the pen that I bought at about 2 o'clock in the morning when I somehow stumbled across fountain pens, found it on eBay, and was like, ah, fountain pen. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna buy that. And about 10 seconds later, $20 had been removed from my PayPal. It's funny that. So, people who know this fountain pen, they're going to say, I got ripped off on this pen. And to be fair, that is true. These pens will go for about $7 US, and that should be about $20 Australian. I paid about $20 Australian plus shipping, so I could have saved a little bit of money, but back then I knew absolutely nothing about fountain pens, only that rich people use them and people that are in sepia and black and white use them. So I really had to get one of these because they were just so awesome, and you know, upon finding it, it became my everyday carry pen for almost 7 months until I decided to buy another fountain pen. And even so, this is a pen that I will take pretty much anywhere, because I can afford to lose this pen and just go buy another one, because I can buy these now for about $15. So if I lose this, yes, I'll be all unhappy and I'll go depressed for about 10 seconds, but then I'll just go buy another one because these are just so replaceable. I've taken this pen pretty much everywhere, and it's the pen that I sign documents with, it's the pen that I've taken overseas. Alright, let's get on to some of the specs. So, capped, this pen will be 13.6 centimeters long. Uncapped, it will be 12 centimeters, and posted, it's going to be around about 15 centimeters long. So, this is a slim pen, I would like to say. The grip of the pen, the section where you actually hold it, it's really small and it is tapered, so some people may not like how slim this pen is. Honestly, I do like it, apart from the fact that because it's so slim, it sort of makes you hold the pen in a really tight grip, and because of that, it will force you to hold this pen at a pretty high angle for a fountain pen when you write, and that to an extent does strain your wrist after a while. It's like using a ballpoint. You have to hold it pretty high just because of how small the nib is and the way that you hold the pen. But apart from that, I have no complaints apart from the weight of this pen. This is a stupidly light pen. It only comes in at about 13 grams when it's posted, and if you choose not to write with it posted, it's only going to be about 8 grams. And that's one of the reasons why I'll only write with this pen posted, just because it's such a lightweight pen. Yes, some people do like that, but honestly, I'd rather it be double this weight. But I only paid about $15 for this pen, so you can expect them to somewhat, I don't know, I guess, cut corners in some places or another. Yes, you can get Jinhaos for a lot cheaper that will be metal, but I'll remind you that this is a Pilot pen, and it's made in Japan, and because it's Pilot, there's going to be quite a lot of quality control. So yes, it is light, but this pen will work from the get-go. Something that I would like to say though is that it is built pretty well. This plastic is, yes, it's light, but it is incredibly durable plastic. This has been my everyday carry pen for 3 years now. There are only light scratches all across here. I would have expected there to be deeper scratches, considering that there's keys and coins in my pocket, but here it's held up pretty well. The only complaint that I will have, or not complaint, the only thing that's actually degraded over the years is this little ring sort of thing that came with it, and it's been painted on, but over the years it's sort of just disappeared. So either this pen is magic or the paint was a bit shit. I wonder which one it was. Oh, something that I also need to say is this pen can be and has been done quite a lot, even by me. You can make this an eyedropper pen. This pen, because it's plastic, if you put a bit of silicone grease along here and an O-ring, you probably can do it without an O-ring, but I recommend that you use an O-ring because there aren't that many threads. But you can make this pen a eyedropper, which is pretty awesome. And if you make it an eyedropper, which I did once in the past, you can fit quite a lot of ink in the back, and it should last you 2 to 3 weeks, because this is such a, well, it's a fine nib, so it doesn't use much ink at all. But if you make it an eyedropper, it will last you 2, 3, or 4 weeks, maybe more, depending on how often you use this pen. I use it every day, so it lasts me 2 to 3 weeks. As well as that, when this pen comes to you, it will have I'll have it here, it's in the back of my Pilot Prera. It will have one of these. It's a really crappy squeeze converter. It looks like a pair of tongs. Yeah, don't use this pen. Don't use this converter in this pen. Reason being is this converter doesn't allow ink to flow all that well, and pretty much it will make this pen run dry and dry start all the time, and it's a lot easier if you just switch to one of these pens. It is expensive. It will cost you about $5 or $6 for this converter. Thankfully, I bought a Pilot Prera and just sort of ripped it out its ass and just shoved it in this one. But it is a lot better than that converter. I don't know why, because the feeds are pretty much the same in those pens. It's just that with this pen, it just seems to run dry a lot more with that old converter. So just a little word of advice there. Alright, let's talk about the nib. So, like all lower-end Pilot fountain pens, these nibs are all interchangeable with all the other pens, apart from the Pilot Vanishing Point, which uses a whole bloody system. So, what I'm trying to get at is, if you take this pen and just hold onto the converter and the nib, feed and converter, and you just pull the pen, it will come out, unit and everything, and you just pop the nib off and just switch it with other pens. So for example, you can switch it with this medium nib on the Pilot Prera. I don't have my Metropolitan here, but you can switch it for the Pilot Metropolitan. You can do it for the Plumix. You can do it for the Penmanship, and you can do it for the Kakuno. So that is something that I like, because sometimes I don't like writing with this finer nib and I just want to use a medium nib or a broad nib, and I can easily just swap it out, which is pretty nice, because seeing that I have other pens with those nibs on it, I think it's nice that I can just go up and rip it out, and when I don't want to use it anymore, just shove it back in. Based on this nib here, unless you absolutely flood the feed in this pen, if you do really quick writing, this pen will tend to run a bit dry on you. However, if you absolutely flood the converter, so flood the feed on this pen, it's an absolutely amazing writer. It's not scratchy, and there is not much resistance on this nib. The only thing that I would like to say is that in terms of flexibility, yes, there is quite a lot of flex to this nib, but the nib only tends to flex upwards, and just the way that this nib is shaped, the tines of the nib will not spread out when you apply force. They'll pretty much flex up, and the tines will pretty much stay, just go up like that. Because, oh shit, when you normally flex a pen, they'll go up and out, but for a lot of these Pilot pens, they'll just flex up, and that's about it. Alright, let's talk about what I like and what I don't like about this pen. I like how it's durable, because I've used this pen as an everyday carry pen for 3 years. Nothing's gone wrong with it, it hasn't cracked. There are only light scratches on this pen, with the only bad thing happening being this sort of gold stuff disappearing. That's a damn shame. The price, yes, it is sort of expensive for a pen that is sort of expensive, but considering how well it writes compared to, say, a Jinhao, I think that this is a pretty good pen for the price that you can pay for it. The price that I paid for it was total rip-off. I wouldn't do it. If you can find this pen for about $9 to $15, yes, I'd say buy it, but anything more, then they're just trying to scam you. I love how the nibs are interchangeable with all the other lower end Pilot nibs, which is something that a lot of people like about these Pilot pens. And I also like how the ink lasts so long if you can convert this to an eyedropper pen. If you get one and you don't change your inks all the time, I would recommend that you actually do that. Things that I don't like about this pen, the only real complaints that I have is just the sheer lightness of this pen. It's only 13 grams with it posted, and sometimes that is just not enough for a pen for it to be comfortable. And the only other real complaint that I have is it just runs dry so damn easily if you don't absolutely flood the feed with ink. So, conclusion, this is much better than a Pilot Metro. Get this instead of a Metro, honestly.